This is my experience with Marc Heynderickx and FD3S engineering in Canby, Oregon. When I first met Marc, he was just thinking about opening up a business having to do with Rx7s. He was living at his dad's house in Canby, and he hadn't even thought of the name FD3S Engineering. At that time, this was the building for FD3S Engineering. He really didn't have a place to put a car, or really any ways to offer services. He made a post on the Rx7 Club seeing if there would be anybody interested in coming over to his house to work on cars with him. Marc's actual job was as a software engineer. He got his first job working through his dad's school. He did computer work off and on while doing FD3S engineering at first, but then later just settled with Legacy Health. This job also provides him the ability to work out of his dad's house in Canby. Marc knew the building on his property wasn't going to suffice, so he started looking at other properties, like this one here in Beaverton that was right next to Apex Auto Salon. They were renting out the back of the shop, and he ended up snagging up that bay. He made a post on the Rx7 Club about it and had a barbecue, and a bunch of people started showing up. He had even recruited Daniel Lead from Pineapple Racing, who was a well-respected builder, once Pineapple Racing stated that they were no longer installing or tuning engines, just building them. One of the people to attend the barbecue was myself and my wife. I dropped off her car to have it serviced. I was going to be installing an engine myself, but I knew that Daniel Lead was working there, and I was excited to have him install my wife's engine instead. So you can imagine my surprise a couple weeks later when I showed up to see if the car was finished, only to find that it wasn't fully installed, the work wasn't done, and it wasn't running. Marc had told me that Daniel Lead no longer worked there, and there was some problems with him, such as he was on drugs and he couldn't be trusted because he was scamming local community members. That if I would just let Marc finish all of the work and help me with my cars and avoid Daniel, Marc would even be willing to do it for free, as long as I just avoid that person. Well, I was a sucker and I went ahead and bought it. I was told by Marc that this stolen FC was sketchy and Daniel couldn't be trusted and might not actually be stolen. And so I just kind of walked away from Daniel and went with Marc. I ended up going with Marc, but unfortunately I got the car back non-running. I ended up taking it down to my house and doing the work myself to get it running, swapping some throttle bodies and fixing injectors and whatnot. And then the car was up and on the road. Meanwhile, he started making posts about his shop all over social media, the Rx7 Club, his groups on Facebook, but I was hearing a lot of rumors about how the business wasn't doing well. I went up to the shop one day because his car apparently had been stripped down completely, every single part removed. He had made a post on the Rx7 Club about it, stating that he was being investigated by his insurance company and that there was a lot regarding it. That he would keep everybody posted about what's happening and to keep an eye out for everything. There were lots of rumors and many of the people started to pull their cars away. He ended up closing down the shop and moving back to his dad's house in Canby, and so he only had the original FD3S engineering shop. I personally started moving him back. I loaded up my kid, loaded up his cars, loaded up his tools and his brother's tools, moved his dad's antiques up to his house in Lacey, Washington. Got to know the family pretty well. Didn't charge him for any of it, just wanted to see him get back on his feet again. He didn't even have an Rx7 at that point in time, and he still owed a bunch of people work. But then I started noticing strange things like shady work and weird deals. He started having problems with his friends, which sounded like were employees. And he was using Pineapple Racing more than anywhere else, tagging them, taking pictures while he was there, almost making it seem as if he was Pineapple Racing. I was attending some meets from his previous employer he said he worked for, Bob at Rotards down in Salem. He happened to have a new engine builder that was no longer Marc, and that was Robert White, who was actually the super moderator of the Rx7 Club's Northwest section, also another member of Rotary Power Northwest. At the last meet I showed up, Robert was building a motor for one of Bob's customers. He had installed the oil control rings in upside down and destroyed the brand new 12A motor for a gentleman in Eugene. At first they tried to blame the customer, then they took responsibility and rebuilt the motor. After seeing these practices, I had to walk away and I could not patron or support the businesses anymore. And I was worried about any reputation I was going to get on the Rx7 Club, so I decided to leave there since I knew he didn't have my back. Marc Heynderickx was the first to start putting down Bob Putman in the exact same way that he put down Daniel Lead, and as you can see, they started praising me. At that time, I was building this 1991 Infiniti right-hand drive that came as a clip and I was putting together from scratch. Now, I had just finished up the engine, however, I needed to give it to my friend because he was going to leave rotaries if I didn't, and I had just built a really nice car for him. So, I needed a new engine for my car, and I contacted Mark and said, "So, what do you got? Anybody got anything available, preferably cheap because I can rebuild it myself?" He responded back with, "My buddy's got a car. Hold on, let me give you his information." I ended up texting the guy and he said, "Yeah, I've got a convertible that I'm not going to be using and you can end up having it. So why don't you come on up, take a look at, see if you want it." He ended up taking me over to a U-Haul storage unit in Hillsboro where he had the car sitting in a storage unit. He popped open this thing and it was just sitting there immaculate. I mean, I was blown away. Now, this wasn't the first time I've been given a really nice, perfect condition Rx7. I mean, if you look up on the Rx7 Club, you can see that in the past they've given me an Arctic Silver Turbo 2 that was in mint condition. Just needed an engine. And so this one, I'm thinking, all right, well, it's probably got its issues, or he just doesn't want it. And I was just like, all right, so what's the deal? And he's just like, well, I don't really need it. I got this thing now, and it was going to be a project, but I don't really want to build it anymore. And so, yeah, I was like, awesome. Well, I'll take it. That sounds great. And tried a couple of the keys because he said he didn't have the keys on him. So I was like, all right. Tried some of the keys I had, and none of them really tumbled the lock because the convertibles are a little bit more touchy than the coupes are when it comes to using other keys, and couldn't get it to work. So I ended up beating on the steering and stuff and freeing up the lock that way in front of everybody at the U-Haul while he's looking over my shoulder all paranoid and looking all freaked out. But I didn't care because, I mean, I didn't steal the car. I would never have thought in a million years the car was stolen. However, the car was stolen because as soon as I got it onto the trailer, I asked him for a bill of sale, and you know what he said? He looked at me and said, "Well, about that. Fortunately, I'm going to have to just have you have like a track car or something." Kind of, I was thinking that's what we were discussing, was you're going to use it. I thought you were using it for like parts for your race car, and you were just going to scrap it because my wife actually kind of reported it stolen. I was at work, I didn't know, and by the time I got home, like, cops already come over and filed the report, and we filed one with insurance, and it was just all settled and done, and she didn't know it was just parked a couple blocks away. So I put it in the storage unit, and we just got the check and I bought this, and we just figured, we just want to forget about it. So I looked at him and I was like, oh, hell no. And I said, get this thing off my trailer immediately. We pushed it back off. Now, another Rotary Power Northwest member, the guy who made flyers for Mark's shop, Aaron, had happened to have been there to help me. He brought over some tools so that I could actually get the wheel lock off. We tried some of his keys at first, but nothing worked. And he kind of heard and saw the entire thing. He looked at me and was just like, oh shit. And I was just like, well, you want this thing? Because I don't. I'm not having anything to do with a stolen car. I got back in my truck and trailer and drove away empty bedded. Texted Mark on the way and said, dude, did you have any idea what that was actually about? And of course he responded back with nothing. No, God, no, I didn't know. I don't even know what you're talking about. And then I pretty much got ghosted on it. That's when I went home and I started noticing things like this, that this wasn't the first time he's had stolen car stuff happening. And now I was questioning his own car that just happened that caused his business's demise. And all of the rumors that I'd been hearing about Marc Heynderickx, kind of swapping your parts and taking your stuff. And he'd done it to my wife when she brought that car over, and I mean, he was like, you don't need this stuff. These are Apexi twins for, an FD. You don't even have twins, and, this is an S5 MAF, you don't need it. You have an S4 turbo here, and he just kind of kept that stuff, and I didn't say anything because I figured, we're probably getting a pretty good deal on install, so I'm going to let it just slide. But with all of these stolen car things, I started seeing it all over the Rx7 Club here. I started seeing it all over Facebook and his groups, and it seems like it's a common occurrence that people who got to know him, they ended up with filing insurance claims and letting the Rx7s go that way. And, I'm a different type of guy. This is the shop that I had. I was assembling a bunch of other cars that I had been working really hard. I had 9-to-5 jobs that got me where I was. I grew up without really kind of having the parents that he did. My parents didn't really have the means to even own a house. And so I'd gotten to where I was successfully working my butt off. And I appreciated him, and I didn't look down on him. But I also knew that there was a difference, and I didn't need to get my stuff that way. So I didn't need to work the system or bureaucracy or lie or cheat in any of those ways. And I pushed through all of these cars while I did that. Come the end of that last red one, I kind of realized that I kind of like doing this, and I might want to do kind of what they were doing, and I opened up this small little shop called Reclaimer Auto. And during that time, I hadn't really talked with Mark. I kind of just did my own thing here, as you saw, building those cars. I had a perfect reputation with the Rx7 Club. My trader feedback was perfect. Everybody loved me. I had about one confrontation with disagreeing with the practices at Bob Putman's shop in Rotards in Salem. During that time, Marc Heynderickx started having his father build him a shop on the property so that he didn't have to leave his property anymore, and he could work solely through his computer company and through FD3S engineering on the property without getting in trouble like he did at Beaverton again. By the time that Mark's dad had finished up building the new garage for Mark to use at FD3S Engineering in Canby, I was no longer speaking with Mark. In fact, I was no longer speaking with any of the businesses, as I had found all of them were just tearing into each other at every given platform. This inspired me to make a Jerry Maguire memo-style post on Craigslist to kind of call out the efficacy and the morals of the shop and remind them all what they're actually here to do for the Rotary community. When I decided to make a post about the convertible that Mark set me up with on Rotary Power Northwest, I was immediately removed by Mark. As soon as Mark banned me from Rotary Power Northwest, he started making posts all over Rotary Power Northwest to slander and destroy my name, and he did it in the exact same way that he did it with everyone before. The same as he did with Bob Putman, the same as he did with Daniel Lead, all of these people that ran shops or were business partners that were no longer going to benefit him in any way were thrown under the bus and destroyed with the exact same claim. They're crackheads, they're unstable, they're thieves, they're just going to scam you and take your stuff. Now, Mark's IT tech job fell flat because he had gotten in trouble setting up a friend to steal his computer stuff, and his friend got busted, and they ratted on Mark, and Mark got kicked out of the school. And so this is why Mark was doing FD3S engineering, and the computer stuff didn't work out, is it wasn't fully buriable yet, and he was still living in that past. So when I found that out, when he had told me about that, and all of these stories that are coming out about him with the car thefts, and all of the things that are just immediately Googleable and showing that he's surrounded by dozens of stolen vehicles, all vehicles that get insurance claims, get a big check, and then those people are back at his shop spending the money on new shells. These things made me suspect, and I knew that I was in for a bunch of slander. But what I didn't expect was how made up this slander was. I started seeing Mark post things about how I had built motors for people that were using mismatched parts, and that's a complete load of nonsense. First off, I've never built a motor for a guy in Eugene. I had sold a car that was running and driving in perfect condition, traded it for a Subaru for my wife because she was now more interested in Subarus than Rx7s after the Marc Heynderickx experience at his shop. And so I traded that one along. Otherwise, the only one that was ever sold that was a motor down there was not built by me, but it was the car that he and Daniel Lead had worked on from my wife that had been sold as a parts car to the gentleman down in Eugene, where they had said that it only needed an engine harness and it was a perfect running motor. So I am completely baffled where he came up with this idea that I had built a motor for a gentleman down there. Now, granted, there's no pictures or evidence of any of these claims as opposed to the evidence and pictures that I am providing here. He's just stating this. And of course, as he runs the group and as he has all this inherited wealth and looks so good, and no one understands what's actually taken place and why his father just had to build him a shop on his father's property where he grew up, is because, they're not privy, they don't care, they don't know, and so they think he's successful, just like I thought he was successful when I decided to go with him over Daniel Lead. And this is what I ended up facing, was people listening to him and deciding that he was right, and obviously these truths he's saying have weight to them without any actual evidence. He ended up telling the moderators of all the clubs this, and people like Eric Ritter and all of these group admins ended up blasting me all over all of the sites that are on Facebook and the Rx7 Club, calling me a scammer, saying watch out for this guy, claiming that I am, I'm unstable and I'm a thief and all of these things to watch out for, literally everything that Mark had been saying. And I couldn't really understand exactly the depths of it and how that came to be until I saw this post on Rotary Power Northwest that Mark had approved, where it was a guy named Evan making claims about a convertible RX-7 that I had once sold him, now claiming that it was a stolen convertible and I sold stolen cars. Now, the claim was that I'm shady and I'm a drug addict and all of this nonsense. Literally, the words of Marc Heynderickx regurgitated through his post. The truth always comes out, and within 30 days, it had been found that Evan Minesco was literally everything Mark was projecting about me was actually Evan. And Evan was on drugs, mentally unstable, and literally just trying to scam everybody in the group. And so when, him and his friends joined the stolen car group of Mark's little ring and joined in on the comments about how, oh, it must be all these shady people, I knew right then that I wasn't going to get on top of this and that there were too many people involved with it for the right thing to be done. So now when I get on Marketplace, Craigslist, any of these places to purchase or sell something, I'm confronted with all of these people calling me a liar or a thief or a scammer selling stolen cars. And I have to explain to every single one of them, like this guy, who Scott Wagers is and why it is that this nonsense created by Mark and his group isn't true. Every time I have to explain this convertible, I have to tell people that I got this steering wheel from a 1966 Pontiac Catalina that I once owned, and I traded it straight across to a guy up in Washington for his convertible RX-7. I brought it home and I started parting it out. I stopped parting it out when I was finishing my right-hand drive because I had a bad crash. I ended up with the guy who was with me having that crash and not doing very well in his life, trying to use that convertible to motivate him. I gave it to him and said we can start using parts from my crash and from various RX-7s that I have lying around to build it to make yourself one to kind of get you motivated to get going in life. Unfortunately, he decided to go a different route, and he ended up going back to Hawaii instead of staying on the mainland and left the card back to me as it was, saying, thanks, appreciate it, gonna do a different thing. I then parted the car back down and gave it to Evan Minesco for $200 and a bunch of free parts. So you can imagine how fun this is for me to have to constantly regurgitate this story about that person, this car, and how much nonsense that is, because this is literally all that they have ever had over the last 12 years of slandering my name in order to keep what they have done quiet. Since then, the attacks from Mark's, the DMs he sends, and the lies he creates have only gotten worse. I started selling things at really good deals and getting engines at better deals than my competitors, and they came at me with everything. I was selling these FDs for $1,000 and $2,000 a piece to the local community members, hoping that I would be able to start a larger community. They immediately attacked me all over the internet. I had to go on and defend myself, showing that the cars were legitimate, that a 1995 Montego Blue FD fully caged as a roller is worth $1,000, and I'm not scamming anyone. That I have no problem letting that one go because I'm working on a right-hand drive BN Sports blister wide body, and I don't need that one as much. I can only have one at a time. But Mark would find any way he could to attack and slander myself, and now my family was being brought in because they were just enjoying the cars with me. It got so bad that if you go on Rotary Power Northwest, you'll just find that everybody there is literally just talking about celebrating my death. Marc and Derek are always quick to jump in and make a comment about how I wanted it to be back how it was before I saw all the slander and lies, before they started stealing cars, back when everybody didn't run a business. And then they started assisting and scamming me. They started selling me blown motors and laughing about it. When I'd call them out on other sites, they would go there and tell the moderators to ban me. They would go there and tell them stories about how I had stolen convertibles and I sold blown motors, which was now incredibly ironic. The moderators would immediately listen to them and kick Becky and Liam and myself out of any group that we were in the Northwest, assuming that this very, very high established titled person isn't lying on his websites. They even made public service announcements on Anti-Drift Tax Northwest and places like that about how I need to get taken out for all of my bullshit and ban me if you see me. So while I'm not on the Rx7 Club, I am on every other Rotary forum out there, and I started posting about what I had experienced on those forums. Having actually been scammed by Mark and his friends, Rotary Power Northwest, using that site and that platform to do these things to me, I now felt it necessary to start showing the evidence as to why these people cannot be trusted and that they are laughing about what they do to each community member. I started getting messages from people telling me that they were being instant messaged and direct messaged all sorts of things about how I'm a scammer and a thief and I can't be trusted, and none of what they were sending really made any sense, and it was an obvious attempt to just murder my character. I ended up finding most of the things they were saying. A lot of them were really disgusting. Most of them started making pedophile comments, posting pictures of me and my kid up together. It got really bad. Most of the groups were deleted and destroyed, and there's only a few of them remaining. None of them have anything to say about us anymore. Meanwhile, their new tactic apparently has been to create fake accounts pretending to be me to hassle themselves so that they can use that against me. 10 years into Marc Heynderickx slandering me, my family, and everybody I know, I finally decided to make a public post on the Rx7 Club explaining exactly what had happened and how he's harassing my family and the reasons why all of this has happened. He came back with some of the most ridiculous claims and attacks to date. He again claimed that I was scamming people using accounts under my son's name, thus pretending to be my son, which is a claim of identity theft and is a serious accusation, and that I've done it multiple times. Becky had explained to Mark previously several times that she had set up the PayPal account for Liam to use so that Liam could start selling and buying Rx7 parts because he was building Rx7 cars. Liam had already taken it upon himself to join the Rx7 community. He had joined a bunch of the Facebook groups, and he was buying and selling parts using his PayPal account that his mom had set up for him. He had established a good name despite all of Mark's best attempts to ruin him. So when Mark posted a claim a guy was making about how I was scamming him through my sons and using a fake account to do so, that was a big deal. So I had to confront him to make sure that everyone was aware that this is a complete fabrication, that my son had actually sold him personally those fuel rails, and here was the story behind it. I showed that these fuel rails right here were the exact ones sold. These are the pictures he was given, and he was explained that these came off of the NA rotary engine that was being turboed. So all of the pulsation dampeners were removed, new injectors were put in, AN fittings were installed, new lines, and so on. This way, if you're wanting to run the stock intakes on your Series 4 or your Series 5 setup, and you just want to slap a turbo on it and change your ECU out, this is what you're going to want to run so that you can run better fuel pressure or control it with an FPR. All of these are the setups that you would want. We sold it for $50, shipped, good deal. We thought he was going to be content. He just didn't know what he was purchasing. That is out of Liam's control. So it turns out the whole reason for the attack on Liam could have been just another projection I pointed out. That, at the exact same time, look what our kids are doing. Like his kid in Mark's inherited wealth, brand new shop with a lift and all the money that things could buy, he's learned to install oil in the lawnmower. At the exact same time, Liam was developing this reputation on the Rx7 community with 6,000 plus views of someone who knows how to build rotary engines. In fact, at 12 years old, had become the world's youngest rotary engine builder. So this is when he starts backpedaling a little bit because he's obviously concerned that now he's going to be roped into this lawsuit. After telling a few people what had happened, I started seeing a lot of people taking my defense again, a lot of people calling out the nonsense, and a lot of people just being outright disgusted with the treatment. Someone ended up making a thread about me on the Rx7 Club in my defense, and Mark immediately jumped on it and started his slander. As always, he came with, nobody's real, not my family, nobody, it's always me, I'm insane, and I'm just here to thief and scam and do as I do. While it went back and forth, it was clear that the person was giving legitimate information on my defense, and Mark was just gaslighting and belittling every single post made, to the point where people were coming on saying that they don't even care about this decade-old crap, even if they're for Joe Maddox. About the time that he started bashing Liam thoroughly, making claims that I need to seek mental help and see psychiatrists and all of this nonsense, that's when I actually did make a new account and get back on the Rx7 groups, or on the Rx7 Club, and signed up and started posting in my defense of what I was watching there. And it went from there that myself, my friends, my wife, and Liam from here started making videos and posts and everything, all of us saying, Mark, stop it. You have to quit.
Hi, Mark. Happy Easter. So kind of you to spend it with us instead of your family. This is your last congenial warning to stop harassing me and Liam. Depersonalization is a form of harassment. Stop. So yeah, again, this is me. Hi. Liam.
Hello.
Right hand drive. Yada. Ours. Real.
I like Rx7s. And I am real. This is a right-hand drive. And I have built a rotary engine before. And I do own that Miata. And I am going to build the engine for the Miata. And this is a nice car. And we can all agree with that.
And there you go again, Mark. Statements, general statements, like no one can say anything nice about anyone in the Maddox family, includes Liam Maddox. Yes, you are talking smack on a child. Stop it. He hasn't even had a chance to start. You all went at him at his start. He did build a rotary motor. He does have his own PayPal account, as do I. Since he started working, doing odd jobs at like 12, he's had his own money, he's accumulated his own parts, and he's done his own trading. And for the record, bad faith seller, proof. Give some proof. A canceled transaction is not a scam. It's a canceled transaction. If somebody gets their money back, but not their goods, they may be unhappy, but they were not scammed. Or everyone's being scammed in the pandemic right now. Likewise, welcome to America and a free market. We have the right to refuse service. If somebody is slandering our business, or our individual selves since we aren't a business, we don't have to do business with them and we can cancel transactions or back out of sales. And if somebody purchases something that they were shown in every way possible through distance, pictures, videos, descriptions that require reading comprehension, and they choose to buy it knowing all sales are final, if they choose to buy it when they know that all sales are final, no, they don't get a refund. That's the whole point of all sales being final and no refunds being offered. The end. Again, already. And Chris, wow, amazing. Hi, Chris. I don't know why you decided to pop up. It's probably not helpful. For the record, nice fabrication again, some more, Mark and Chris for reinforcing it. I distinctly recall at least a month, possibly more, of Chris daily texting me wanting to know why Joe ghosted him, stopped talking to him, stopped being his friend. And I remember telling him that whole time that he didn't want to know the answer, and that Joe's final gift as best friend to him was his silence and not sharing why. He just stopped responding to him, sold Rotary Works to him for $1, cut all ties. Well, Chris, you found out later why, huh? Because it was because you were telling everyone, even Joe's own family, that your wide body was built by you, not by Joe. And and then, a few months after you told me that you could be Joe's best friend or worst enemy and it was his choice, to which I replied, all anyone can do is make the choices that best suit who they most want to be. A few months later, Nate gets arrested for confessing to multiple times raping the girl that called him daddy and had weekends in your house with him. where she was terribly hurt, 6 feet away from where you sleep, and you had the gall to support him, to encourage him to put a 7-year-old on trial? Shut the fuck up, crawl back into your Honda Miata, and die. Mark, please note your hypocrisy. Who has referenced my son every post that he has made? All you have provided is more proof of your depersonalization of Liam and I. Please link a profile or a post that you claim was not me or Liam, that you think was Joe. Give me a call this evening. Let's go over it together. Quit saying I'm not real. Quit trying to erase my history on social media just because you don't like it and you like devaluing me as a person. Stop devaluating Liam. Just because you believe your child is not capable of learning business practices at the age of 10 and up, don't project that onto my child. I started working at 8. Liam was given the opportunity to sell anything that he removed from a car and anything that he cleaned. So yeah, he sold car parts. There is heavy documentation of him working with Joe on cars since he could pick up a wrench, but he's been doing stuff on his own since he was 11, 12. So don't deign to say that he's not capable of understanding how one might fit an S4 non-turbo fuel rail to work for a 6-port turbo application. And fuel rail guy didn't get a refund or even a response as soon as he threatened violence against a child. My choice. PayPal has allowed children to have linked to their parents' PayPal accounts since 2009. Liam has one. It allows him to accept cards for yard work. It lets him sell his unused Xbox games online or car parts that he earns by removing from parts cars. Just because you don't have to make your child learn how to work doesn't mean it's not possible. And if I own a store and somebody wants a refund and they threaten violence to the person who's providing their customer service, especially if they're a minor, they get the cops called. They don't get a refund. They get 86'd. And that's what happened to Fuel Rail Guy. Thank you, by the way, for posting even more evidence to him doing so. So, again, please link actual profiles and posts that you claim are fraudulent. Because right now, you've got nothing but canceled transactions, which are not scams, and just your word, which is a whole lot of slander. How many times have you called Joe trash on here? How many times have you brought up Liam, not him? How many times have you slandered? How many times have you called him crazy? Your concern trolling is harassment as well. Concern trolling, if you don't know what it means, is when you pretend to be worried about someone's situation, their health, to make people question their integrity, or in this case, his mental capacity. Either way, you're being abusive, and the bully you keep accusing him of being. It's really been really great. You referenced Endgame. You don't even know what game you're playing, but you are playing it beautifully. It's really just great how much you've revealed yourself, and you know, maybe you are just finally embracing it, and it is that you are completely ableist, and Joe's right, sexist, because you're not going to respond to this. You probably aren't even going to look at it because you're so 10 years in on pretending I'm not real and have nothing to do with this. Just like your ableism makes you believe that because Liam had speech delay when he was 2, isn't capable of working at the age of 15, of managing money, of understanding his rights as well as his responsibilities when he engages in business. Wow. But thank you for your cooperation.
So this is FD3S Engineering. This is where Mark found himself. At his dad's property again, working out of a shop that is his dad's garage, because he lost his place in Beaverton, and he lost his place at his dad's school, all because he's been scamming. He runs the places that he has, so he has the ability to show himself as he sees fit, and he has his father's inherited wealth that makes it impossible for him to look like he is very successful. So while he continuously attacks my family, it's funny because the reality is Reclaimer Auto was a business I started in 2013, and I had let go of that by 2015 when I realized exactly what the community was doing to itself. He is still using all of his powers to attack my family and discredit my name simply because he thinks that the business that I started in 2013 is the same as it was then now. Sadly, since 2015, I have walked away from the Rotary community. I have been doing other things with my life. Liam just recently decided that he was going to take up Reclaimer Auto again because he wanted a place to be able to catalog all of his builds and to promote his skills if he ever decided that automotive technologies or engineering was something he was interested in the future. However, like I said, I haven't been doing cars for years now. I have been enjoying a couple of my cars, and I enjoy placing them on the hobby site that is Reclaimer Auto we both enjoy. I am a lapidary artist. I run Oregon Only Stones, and I don't have anything to do with this man, yet he continuously slanders, destroys, and tries to discredit every single person in my family. So that's my experience with FD3S Engineering and Marc Heynderickx. I do not recommend their shop. I do not recommend going through any of their places. I recommend you stay clear of Rotary Power Northwest and the Rx7 Northwest section because the moderators and the admins are all only a couple of the same people, and they are legitimately only invested in their own business interests.